Well, there is some thought out there, more theory than anything, that it's possible that human beings move as an organism, and we just don't understand how interconnected we are. Like you said about trees, which has just come out recently, of how communicative they are, and how
Mhm.
healing and helpful they are to each other. We know
Right.
that mycelium of the,
That's
how
exactly
mushrooms
right.
make up the entire planet. And so it's not so much of a stretch to believe that
No.
potentially humans are one giant organism and that
Right.
we are all connected. So
Right.
if we start spreading it, it becomes like this idea that sounds like a Beatles song or some movie, where if we start spreading more love, acceptance, and care to
Right.
ourselves and our communities, then
Right.
these are things that can ripple out, as you said. And and that, I think it does make sense. It starts with how you show up every day to the people in your community, because then that will ripple
Mm.
out, hopefully, ideally, into the rest of the world.
There's no hopefully ideally. Absolutely. And so everything we do is out there. Every emotion we have ends up being out there in some way. Now, especially if we're out with people, but even if we're with ourselves, because it stays in us and it's part of who we are,
Right.
just like everyone who came before us is in us. We still live the trauma of our parents and their parents and their parents. This is known in the work of Rachel Yehuda, who's the one who coined the term PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, in the 90s. She did the seminal research on the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors and found out that they have greater, what's called all form mortality. It sounds awful. Basically every big disease that's out there, they have more of it, and they actually die younger. And it's a very scary thing. But it's not just that's just the group that she studied. But we're all the children and grandchildren of the soldiers of all the wars that have been out there, and every bit of discrimination and racism and anti-Semitism and bullying. We're all the result of people who experienced that. We're also the result of the people who experienced tremendous care and kindness and love. So it's all in us, but it's up to us to be intentful about how do I want. This is something I asked in a survey recently, that I ask in actually all of my show up surveys. So I'm going to ask you one of the questions that I asked around preparing for activities in your day. How often do you ask yourself, how do I want others to feel in my presence? What percentage do you think check that box that they ask themselves that?
Oh, I would say very low. Very, very, very low. I don't
Which
know,
is,
10%.
so I think people gave themselves a little pat on the back, maybe that they didn't deserve. My statistics show 27%.
Okay.
27%. Okay, but what it means is that 70% of us don't think about, how am I impacting others? How do I want them to feel around me?
Right.
I mean, isn't that the main question of leadership?
Right.
Because if people don't feel your care, there's no loyalty. You're just a pawn that they're moving around their business chessboard about, how can I add more dollars and cents to my bottom line.
Right. Not to mention in our closest relationships with our friends or our partners. Like, it's one thing to support a partner, and there's another one to bring your presence if you're constantly anxious or worried, and this heaviness that we expect, our
Mhm.
closest partners and friends to do the heavy lifting, and that's not their job. If people can support us, that's great, but I think our job is to show up for ourselves. Otherwise, we're asking them
Yeah.
to show up for us when we're not willing to do it for ourselves, and that becomes, I'm sure, a
Right.
much more complicated and negative cycle between two people.
Absolutely. And I really would love you and your listeners to carry with you the concept: self, we don't stop at our skin and our skulls. We're not designed to. We're leaves on a tree. What we do impacts everybody. So when you think, just the self care that you're doing, it's not just for you, it's for society, it's for the people you're in situations with, it's for everyone. And frankly, I view it as a responsibility and I really let people have it in the chapter on just showing up.
Hmm.
I say, basically, we are each other's custodians. We are we are each other's environment. We create who others are. We are their society.
Oh, hold on. That is a great line, that we are each other's environment.
Hmm.
That's going to stay with me for a little while, because when we think of environment, obviously we think of trees and rolling hills and where we live in the cities. But I think we kind of dismiss that a lot of these places that we live are other people, and so other people are absolutely our environment. And
Right.
you can think of pollution factors in our environment, but we don't think of other people that can be emotional polluters for how we live in the world. That is great.
Thank you. We also have to create the ecosystem. So because we are each other's environment, you say, well, what does that really mean? It means that it's imperative upon us to create an ecosystem that we want to truly show up with, to, and for.
Right.
That is a healthy, responsible ecosystem caring for everyone else who's impacted. Don't forget those 8,000 people. That's every moment of every day. It's relentless. That's so the phrase that you introduced me with, showing up, is the invisible system all around us. It's everywhere and you can't get rid of it. It is literally our operating system. So that's
It,
why we have to fortify it.
I was gonna say, I don't think people really understand the feedback loop either, from these small little, even micro interactions or larger interactions with the world and with each other. If we're
Yeah.
showing up in every
Right.
moment, if you're in a coffee shop just speaking to a
Right.
barista and you can
Yep.
just smile and be kind, like we have these small feedback loops
Right.
that I personally have believed this for a long time, that kind of feed the rest of your life. That
Right.
if you give love and kindness and generosity to other people, it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself. You can just be kinder. If you have an ability to make someone's day a little bit brighter, you can. But these feedback loops all come and they become this like virtuous cycle that I think fuels the rest of your life. And so I think that's why, even subconsciously, when I came across your profile
Mhm.
to be a guest, I felt it's something that I've been doing, and something that I've seen growing up from the people, from the family in my life, that that has really informed a lot of how I want to show up in the world.